Hello and welcome back to the Hudson Hangout. Today I'm interviewing Andy Marx, an award-winning photographer. His work has been shown in galleries all across the world, from Los Angeles to Tel Aviv, Israel. It has also been shown in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, Variety, and the Wall Street Journal, to name a few. Also, this episode is exciting for me because he's the grandson of Groucho Marx, one of my favorite actors and writers of all time. Hi, Andy, and thanks for coming to the show.
Well, I am just so honored that you asked me to be here, and it's a thrill. And I love
Okay.
talking to a fellow Palisadian.
Now, let's get this interview on with. Why did you decide to become a photographer? And what age did you start taking photos?
Oh my God. Okay. I came to photography very late in life, actually. My father was kind of a hobbyist, kind of really good at what a camera enthusiast when I was growing up. He didn't have a dark room, but he had an enlarger and he used to do a lot of stuff. So I don't know. I think for that reason, because he was doing it, I wasn't that interested in it. I was more interested in music. And then, I spent a lot of my life writing, and I'm a member of the Writers Guild. And so in 2008, there was a big Writers Guild strike, which went on, for like 6 months, and we were all kind of out of work, and those of us that were working, we had to like stop. And so anyway, and I had kind of been, so that was 2008. I have three children, a daughter that was born in 1989, and then I have twins that were born in 1999. So that's kind of when I started to get into photography. It was also when digital came along. I'm a very impatient person, and I think one of the things I didn't like about film was that you take your pictures and then have to wait a week, getting them back from the photo lab. So when digital came, it was cool. I could snap and put it in the computer. So that was around 2000. So then around the time of the writer's strike, I kind of was looking around, and I don't know, how old was I? I guess I was in my 50s, and I kind of said, maybe the Writers Guild, we got kind of, it wasn't, it was kind of a bad time for, writers at that time. And I said, I don't know, maybe I could like do some stuff with my photography. And because I was just basically doing stuff on my own. And I was at some opening of a place, and I happened to have my camera with me, and I just was snapping away. And I happened to take a photo of a woman who was I guess she was a model, an actress, like everybody in LA. And I sent her the photos, and she said, "Oh, those are wonderful. Could I hire you to do my headshots?" Which I had never done before. I didn't have a studio. I didn't have anything. I actually had to borrow a friend of mine who had a studio. I went there, and we did all these headshots. Anyway, so that kind of blossomed into that. And then, so then I kind of started doing the thing with doing, headshots, and then, as more and more people heard it, I was doing it. And then at the same time, I got kind of interested in what they call street photography, which is, and I basically, and this was kind of before, the days, now the iPhones are so good. I mean, you basically don't even need a camera, but this was before that. So I really literally would always, and I still kind of do, I walk around with a real camera. Prior to the pandemic, I would literally every day was out shooting stuff. And so that became kind of what I guess they call like fine art photography. And I got a art dealer in Palm Beach, Florida. So he was selling a lot of my prints and things like that. And then kind of on the flip side, I started to get more into commercial photography and doing movie posters and just all that kind of stuff. And, so that's how it started. I just kind of was looking for something new to do. I was a little burnt out on writing. I had been writing for many years, not just a screenwriter. I had been a journalist for a long time. So,
And that's a cool coincidence since I also like doing photography.
oh, you do, yeah, and you probably do mostly on your phone, right?
No, my mom actually has a digital camera.
Yeah,
Digital camera.
yeah. I mean, there's a thing to me the one thing that I don't love, and again, it's good as and I'm always updating my iPhone, and I always have to, get the newest one because the camera is the one thing, that they really every year gets a little better. But the one thing that I still don't love about shooting with the phone is that, you kind of have to hold it here. And if it's sunny, it's a little, whereas if you have a viewfinder and a camera, you're right there and it's there and you can kind of see it. But I've shot a lot of nice things. I do a lot of martini photos, and actually a book of mine is coming out. If you go on the website, there's a section, and they're all like black and white photos of martinis. And I think, almost every one of them was shot, with the iPhone. So if you can, if the light's good and you can get a good shot, it really is almost to the point where you don't need to lug around a camera anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've seen those billboards, those Apple billboards, advertising the photos of the iPhone and how good they are. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal.
On your website, you have portrait photography, editorial, advertising,
yes, right.
World photography, and lots of pictures of martinis.
Yes, gotta have a martini. And
what is your favorite thing to photograph?
Oh, I would say the street photography is my favorite thing. And like, for instance, if you hold that back up, on the thing that says the world, that particular photograph there, that's the featured photograph right there of the photographer shooting the guy in the tuxedo, is probably one of my one of my favorite photographs of all the photographs I've ever done.
And that's a photographer, and you're taking a photo of a photographer?
What happened was I was in Paris, France with my wife and my twins. This was 2015. And I always have my camera with me, and I'm always jumping out and taking a photo. So we were on our way to dinner, and my kids at that time, well, they're 21 now. So I don't know, they were like, I guess they were 14 or 15 at the time. And they're like, "Oh, Dad, do you really have to like take another photo?" So we were going to dinner, and we were going down the street, and we're in a cab, we're in a taxi, and I see this guy doing this photo shoot with the guy in the middle of the street. And I said, "Stop the cab." And I got out and I snapped away at the two guys. And then it just turned out that the dinner place was about a block away. So they went on to the dinner place, and I said, "I'll be there in like 10 minutes. Yeah, I'll walk over." So I shot the guys, did not say anything to them, walked down to the restaurant, and about 20 minutes later, the model, the tall, skinny, well, they both are, but the guy in the tuxedo comes into the restaurant looking for me. And I thought, uh-oh, I've really done it now. I probably wasn't supposed to do that. And they're mad and this whole thing. And he comes in, and he's Italian. And he, speaks kind of broken English, and he goes, what were you just doing? I said, "Oh, I'm a photographer. It looked really interesting." So then we introduced each other, to ourselves, and he said, "Oh, let's do a photo shoot tomorrow." So the next day I met up. So it turned out the photographer was Russian. He was Italian. And so anyway, they finished. And then the next day I met up with him, the Italian model, and he took me all over Paris. And we did like this incredible, like shooting photos of him all over. And it was one of my favorite things, but that shot was just a complete, happy accident, candid kind of thing. But then we did a lot of fashion stuff, and he took me up to like where Hemingway lived in Paris, and it was great. So, and he and I now are like really good, we were like good friends. But again, just a happy accident of meeting somebody by taking pictures, so that was kind of nice.
How do you choose to do black and white and color versus photography? And do you do black and white with film, like black and white film, or do you just take a color photograph and turn it into black and white?
Well, there's two ways to do it. I don't shoot any film, but there are settings in the digital cameras where you can just shoot in black and white, so you don't have to convert it. A lot of times I'll shoot color, which I'll then convert to black and white. Usually all of the street stuff, I prefer black and white only because if it's in black and white, you pay attention to you're not getting distracted by the colors and everything. You're paying more attention to what the photograph is. So that's why I do that. Obviously, if it's like a photo shoot or something like that, most people, it's not like the old days where you do like a black and white headshot of an actor. I mean, if they want one, you can do it, but and if you're doing like a movie poster or something like that, chances are most of the stuff's going to be in color. And that's usually if I'm hired to do a thing, to do photos for somebody, then that's really kind of decided by the art director or who's ever producing the photo shoot or something. That's up to them. The martini ones, I don't know. I just like the way that the martini photos, look in black and white. That's just my thing.
Some of your photographs has been for movie posters like Middle School and Love the Coopers.
Yes.
Your family has a long history in Hollywood, as your grandfather is Groucho Marx. What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about your grandparents and grand-uncles, the Marx brothers?
Probably the thing that's, I think, which is the thing, that gets misunderstood about a lot of comedians is that they weren't serious at all, that everything was just always funny. And my grandfather Groucho was not that way at all. I mean, he most of the time off camera, was very serious, not very serious, but I mean, he wasn't doing the sort of, the snappy kind of Groucho stuff that we've all kind of come to expect of him. And again, I think, the misunderstanding, a lot of people just think that the people that you see on screen is their personality. And, obviously Harpo talked. So, I mean, and a lot of people still say to me, could Harpo speak? And he could. It was just, he was such a great mime that he chose to do everything with mime. I once had lunch over at my grandfather's house, and one of the guests there for lunch was a guy named Marcel Marceau, who is considered, one of the greatest. He's French, and he's considered one of the greatest mimes, to ever live. And he basically said to me, Harpo is the greatest mime ever. So you have Marceau, you have Chaplin, who for all intents and purpose, he was wonderful in so many things, but obviously because the movies were silent, he had to mime a lot of stuff. Harpo, on the other hand, was in talking movies, but chose not to speak. So, again, it's just, you see everybody thinks like Steve Martin would be like a barrel of laughs, like 24 hours a day. And he's not. I mean, read about him. He's very kind of, he's very, he's not the big giant extrovert that you see, doing the I'm the wild and crazy guy, or, with the arrow in his, he's a very kind of serious thinking guy, but when he wants to be funny, he's funny.
And I actually have a funny story that I read somewhere, or my dad told me, I can't remember, about how a lot of people think Harpo can't speak, is that Harpo was like speeding or something one day and a police pulled him over, and he was like, I'm Harpo Marx, let me go. And the police was like, obviously you're not, you can talk.
Well, I believe, that's probably true. I'm there. Again, over my lifetime, I've been asked many times, could Harpo speak? And there's a lot of different stories as to why he didn't speak on stage. There's, one of the stories is that he was so nervous that he just forgot his lines, and people thought, that was part of the act. There's another kind of a story, which I'm sure is not true, but there was a story that Harpo told somebody to drop dead, and the next day the guy dropped dead. So Harpo said, I'm never speaking again. I'm sure that's an apocryphal, not true story. But I think it was more about Harpo realized, what his gift was, and he didn't need to speak. Look, he had Groucho, who's one of the greatest speaking wits of all time. And Chico also, was pretty witty he had a thing going when he spoke. You didn't really, Harpo, came up with another shtick to do, and he was really good at it, which is kind of amazing that you had a family of three brothers and each one had a different talent, but yet they managed to go together, which is kind of cool.
My favorite Marx Brothers movie is Monkey Business, especially the scene in the barrels at the beginning. What's your favorite scene from a Marx Brothers movie?
I don't know if it's my favorite, but I almost agree with you, because I actually think Monkey Business is a really great movie. Greatest scene. Well, I mean, of course, there's the obvious, stateroom scene in A Night at the Opera, which is pretty great. There's another scene, I think it's from A Day at the Races, where they're wallpapering.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Okay, so that's pretty good. But one of the great scenes is have you seen the movie At the Circus?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, so there's a guy and he was really small, and so he had his room on the traveling train was a very tiny room for somebody of his size, and so they had the scene where Groucho goes in to interrogate him, and Groucho, and he can't move around the room, and it's a very sort of, because the movie is very, it's not considered one of the best, and it's kind of underrated, so people don't think of that scene, but that is an absolute hilarious scene, I guess. And again, it's either that or the stateroom scene is a pretty great scene.
Another good scene is in A Night in Casablanca, where they move around in like the dressers and things in the room.
Yeah.
Where like the clothes move around into like its dresser.
Yeah, that's another movie that's kind of underrated and not considered one of the best. So people, kind of they some of the scenes from those movies don't always pop up as, oh, that's my favorite scene.
Mm-hmm. And I like when the guy opens the closet door, they shut the other one into it.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of movies. I mean, there's the thing in Night at the Opera where they're like in the different hotel rooms, where the policeman is looking for them and they're doing
that one's also great. That seems too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. They seem to sort of redo that scene in a few different movies, but the monkey business one is the barrels of kippered herring, I believe, is what it is. So do you go every year? Like, do you go to the Arrow?
We try, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have it, unfortunately, last year, but hopefully maybe this year we'll be
unfortunately,
back.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Although they did, I guess they did
an online one, right?
Well, they did it. No, they did a drive-in, I guess. And I actually did it. I taped an intro for that. Actually, for the drive-in, I did a thing this year, but hopefully we'll be back next year.
Hopefully. My dad and I both love to sing Hello, I Must Be Going.
Yes.
And Captain Spaulding. Do you have a favorite Marx Brothers song?
Well, I mean, if you really want, I don't know if this counts as a Marx Brothers. I mean, I guess it does. Have you seen the movie A Day at the Races?
Many times.
Okay. So the great scene where it's a big production number and Harpo's walking around and they sing a song called All God's Children Got Rhythm. All God's children got rhythm. It's like the biggest number in the movie. And anyway, that song happened to be written by my other grandfather, Gus Kahn. So I love that. And also that song is a big jazz standard, like all jazz musicians can play All God's Children Got Rhythm. It's a really, really good song. The scene, unfortunately, is it's a little politically incorrect these days because it has a lot of African Americans singing and everything. But so I don't know, there's kind of a whole thing now where you have to quantify or whatever, certain stuff in certain movies. But anyway, that's one of my favorites. I mean, Hello, I Must Be Going is good. I used to play piano for Groucho and he, up at his house, and he would sing those while I played piano for him. So that was kind of.
What do you do the dances? Since the dances are
well, a little bit, yeah, kind of. He did. He did a he did a he did a show at Carnegie Hall in the 70s, and he kind of did a little bit of the dancing, not too much, but he did Hello, I Must Be Going.
Hello, I must be going. I cannot stay. I came to say I must be going.
And those were written by his good friend Harry Ruby and Bert Kalmar, who were very had a lot to do with. They either wrote scripts for the Marx Brothers or wrote songs in some of the movies. So they were really cool. And those are the other good song, which he never sang. He never sang in a movie, but it's called Father's Day, and you can go on YouTube and you just Google Groucho Marx Father's Day, and it's a very funny song. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. I read an article where you spoke about a bet at overnight camp that your grandfather was Groucho Marx. Can you retell it?
Yeah, I was going to school camp. It was a camp down in Carlsbad, which is around Oceanside, and it was called Camp Pacific, and it was actually a military school that turned it into a surf camp in the summer. And I went there, and it was a 6-week camp. And I used to go, I was like 12 or 13. There was a kid there. He did not believe that I was related to Groucho, but we bet 50 cents or 20, whatever. And Groucho wrote me a letter, and he wrote me a letter. And so I had my proof, but the guy left before I could show him the letter. And so I didn't get paid. So,
and then back then, 50 cents was like
that was pretty good money
these days.
Yeah, that was that's like $1 million. That's like one crypto coin now or something, God, so I did not get that. But the letter, Groucho has a book called The Groucho Letters, and the letter is in that book. So that I'm glad that I got to be included in that book, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. I feel like Monty Python and the Muppets are influenced by your grandpa and great uncles. What comedians do you see reflecting their influence?
You mean what comedians are you mean by the Marx Brothers? You mean who's
influenced by the Marx Brothers?
By the Marx Brothers.
What comedians?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know if are there stand-up comedians? Because they didn't do stand-up. So I guess, it was very, they were very much about anarchy. So, Monty Python is actually kind of a good one. I would say there was a thing called the Firesign Theater, which was a group of guys. I think it would be more, well, I'll tell you some people that were influenced by the Marx Brothers. Have you ever seen any of the movies? Have you seen the movie Airplane? It's a very, very funny movie. Have you ever seen it was some movies, and then they made a TV called Police Squad. Okay, well, there are these three guys: David Zucker, Jerry Zucker, and who was the other one? Jim Abrams. And they were from Milwaukee. They moved to LA, and they started a theater called Kentucky Fried Theater, which was an improv theater. It was on Pico, and then from there, they wrote this. You got to watch Airplane. You'll love it. And ask your parents. I'm sure they know about it. And so I would say, like the Zucker brothers, they did that kind of style of that kind of comedy. And so, they'll admit, that they were huge, influenced by the Marx Brothers. But again, because they didn't do like stand up, it's hard. Basically every comedian, says, yeah, I was influenced and loved the Marx Brothers. I sort of answered that, I guess.
I saw you introduce the Marx Brothers movies at the Aero Theater in Santa Monica on New Year's Day many times. What events for your photography or your family legacy do you most look forward to? Look forward to?
You mean events? You mean that I'll be doing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm in the middle of developing something right now, which is not my photography. I'm actually in the middle of, I'm doing a one-man show based on Gus Kahn, my other grandfather, where I do a whole tribute, through songs, and I tell kind of the history of Gus Kahn. And what's really interesting about Gus Kahn is that Gus Kahn wrote songs for Marx Brothers movies. So the careers were intertwined. So I'm doing sort of a one-man show based, with me and my two grandfathers.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm guessing Gus Kahn and Gus Kahn and Groucho knew each other.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. They knew that. You got to understand, the Marx Brothers were in vaudeville, in the 1900s, and Gus Kahn was a songwriter. Gus Kahn wrote a song around maybe 1911 or something, or maybe a little later, called Sailing Away on the Henry Clay. No, actually, I think it was earlier. And Groucho sang it in vaudeville. And my grandmother, who married Gus Kahn, her name was Grace LeBoy before she became Grace Kahn. Grace LeBoy was a song plugger and met the Marx Brothers. And a song plugger was somebody that went around to the vaudeville acts trying to get them to sing the publisher that she worked for their songs. So that's how she met the Marx Brothers. And then she and Gus Kahn wrote a song called "Oh, How That Woman Could Cook," which was kind of a funny song. and Groucho sang it in 1911 in vaudeville. So that's how intertwined the families, were even back then. So that's kind of what I'm in the midst of working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm always looking forward to the, introducing the movies at the Arrow.
Mm-hmm. Where can people find you online?
Where can they? Well, they can go to, they can go to my website, andymarx.com. They can find me on Instagram. I've kind of been laying low off the social media stuff. Just, I don't know, during the pandemic, there just wasn't a lot to do. And I got a little burnout with the election and everything. I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm on Twitter if they want to, but I'm not one of these people who's doing like 500 tweets a day, but I'm on there. They can contact me, through the website. You can do a thing, or just, Andy Marx, I'm at Andy Marx at Gmail if somebody wants to write me, or, whatever. And they can direct, they can find, I'm on Instagram, Andy Marx. And I probably will get back to, reposting, because I had a pretty big following. I got a little burnout with the pandemic. I got a little tired of taking photographs of people on the street wearing masks. There wasn't much to look at. So, that's it, and if you come to the Arrow, next time, you please come and, I want to meet you, introduce yourself. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thanks for coming to the show.
Well, you are super welcome. And I had a wonderful time, and I'll come back anytime you want me. Thank you. Thank you.